English translation, 292nd contact, Friday 29th of September 2000, 0.31 hours.
I'm very happy that you can come here again. Be welcome.
I wanted to answer some questions before I have to do my duties again. Unfortunately, there was not enough time with Asina because we were in a hurry.
It is not bad anymore. Well, you really surprised me when you showed up with Asina in my office. I did not expect her to be able to come here and that you would find her at all. Where were they and yours that you have not found them in so long?
After materializing, they immediately left Earth again, taking some of the flying apparatuses to Venus and the rest to Mars to clarify and explore some things that were important to them there. So of course we searched in vain for them in earthly space, especially because we have not hermetically monitored the Earth and its airspace since 1995, so that we are no longer orientated towards all the entries, etc. of extraterrestrial intelligences.
You already said that earlier, but you also mentioned that you had loosened your overall control since the mid-80s.
That is right, because since then there is no need for total monitoring anymore.
And how did you find Asina after all?
Of course, by calling them via our remote communication devices, when our search equipment and analyzers as well as the planetary communication attempts produced no results and remained unsuccessful. Consequently, we thought that the Armada must be outside the Earth, which is why we considered success through remote communication, which then produced the desired result.
You speak of remote communication and probably mean a hyperwave or interstellar radio or something. For us here on Earth, distance communication unfortunately only means from place to place, from country to country or from continent to continent, or in the highest case to earthly space stations and manned space capsules and the like.
I understand. Of course, our remote communication devices refer to a technology that enables us to bridge millions and billions of light years at above light speed.
That is how far we Earthlings should be. But tell me, what is the average age of Asina's race? I mean of the Dennaburn. Can you tell me that?
Of course, it is no secret their average age is 320 earthly years.
Passable, not as old as you are becoming, but at least much more than is the case with us Earthlings.
It will still take some time, but in the distant future, the Earth's humanity will also reach this age of average form.
Then there is still hope. I think it will be related to gene manipulation, no?
Certainly.
Unfortunately, we still have a lot of human beings who are thinking about illnesses and who cry out against genetic engineering and thus inhibit progress in this area. These opponents of genetic engineering are, in particular, the so-called Greens, who in their effeminate and lowly intelligent nature, as well as in their fear, stand in the way of inevitable progress. With idiotic arguments, they boycott already existing gene products, and thus destroy decades of research into their effects. Genetically manipulated foods, fruits and vegetables as well as cereals, etc., are burned with the devil, and they are given the claim that they are pathogenic, etc., and all this without understanding that, despite everything, progress cannot be halted, and that genetic engineering and genetic manipulation can solve a great deal, even a great deal of misery in the world, not only in the medical and life-prolonging fields, but also in terms of improving the quality of food that can be grown and otherwise produced, its longer shelf life, resistance to pests, etc. I do not think that the idiotic criers and Mordios' cries against genetic engineering and gene manipulation are simply lowly intelligent and dim-witted in their thinking and understanding, but they do not even have their own opinion about the whole thing, because the rule is that as puppets, they only ape those brain-amputated idea-bringers who invent the nonsense regarding the alleged dangerousness of genetic engineering, genetic manipulation, and genetically modified foods, and who with their sick brains generate ideas according to which genetically modified fruits, vegetables, and types of grain, etc., are supposed to be dangerous and illness-causing. Of course, there is always the possibility that seeds of other plants can be influenced by natural wind or insect fertilization, which can lead to mutations, etc. But this process has also taken place in the wild for millions of years, because otherwise there would be no progress in the plant world, so no new and more resistant plants could develop, adapted to the progressive and constantly renewing life. But this also applies to the animal world, where genetic changes also take place in a natural manner, whereby the animals adapt themselves to the new life as well, while humans slowly becomes more and more atrophied, softened and incapable of procreation, because they sterilize their life and their body as well as the whole food, etc., more and more, and changes them by all kinds of chemical poisons. And when I think of the fact that you told me years ago that Earth humans have been eating genetically modified things for many thousands of years that have been genetically manipulated by extraterrestrials, such as the pear or the avocado fruit, then you could get a screaming cramp from laughter. All the more so, as many foods have already been genetically modified for 25 years, and are also eaten by opponents of genetic engineering without hesitation, just because they do not know that they eat genetically modified food.
Everything you say corresponds to correctness.
Then I have another question about birthdays and anniversaries. What do you think about our group members? Should we celebrate such days or not?
This is only your concern, so you can do what you want. For our part, we find such action primitive and pagan for adult human beings, but it is our opinion and our lifestyle. Basically, you think so in your group. Which is also true that such things are purely private matters, in which one should not interfere, because otherwise the freedom of the individual human being would be curtailed. So such action is a purely private matter and left to personal discretion, although the duties associated with group membership must be taken into account if such duties are to be fulfilled. In principle, however, every person and thus every group member should be able to enjoy himself or herself and be active in every form appropriate to him or her in accordance with his or her free discretion. This is also true for our peoples, and therefore there should be no regulations for the members of your groups. Therefore, every group member and every human being in general has their own and free discretion to be pro or contra in any matters. Everything always remains a purely individual private matter, not only with regard to birthday celebrations and anniversary celebrations, etc., but also with regard to clothing. One's own opinion and expression of opinion, as well as medication and surgical interventions or necessary blood transfusions, etc., in case of illnesses, etc. All things of life and with regard to personality and character are based on the right of the individual and thus on the right of the personality of each individual, without any third party having the right to intervene in it, unless given laws are violated, which demand accountability in order to maintain order and life in every form, which therefore also means that the wrong must never be punished with death. Individual, personal freedom and the safety and integrity of life, consciousness, body and psyche, etc., must be respected and safeguarded under all circumstances, as you also spread through your teaching and instruct the human beings of the earth. Violent restrictions must never appear in the aforementioned forms, but can and may only ever be taught, warned and advised of, even if a person puts their own freedom, their life or the health of their body, their consciousness or their psyche and their character, as well as their virtues, etc., at risk. What is always done by humans in progressive form, or what they accept in this form, must always be of a voluntary form without any compulsion from anywhere. Even in regressive form, the will of the human must be free and without coercion, because they must never be forced to that which is negative or negating. And it is of importance that every human being has to take responsibility for every thinking, feeling, and acting, etc., in progressive form, as well as for every regressive thinking, feeling, and acting, etc.
Once again, you said that so well that I could envy you for your explanations. What a pity they are not my words.
You have explained all these things many times and much better.
Thanks for the flowering vegetables.
Aha! Are they not flowers now?
More often, something new promotes progress.
I understand. But now I want to ask you if you could do the work for us.
Of course, I work on it every night. Here, these folders are for you. There are about 95 pages. Hopefully I hit the right note.
That will certainly be the case. I would like to thank you in the name of all our spiritual leadership. Will it still be possible for you in the next 14 days to look through these works here and work them out correctly for us?
Of course. How many pages are there?
28 pages, but the elaboration should be double or triple again, as I see with this work here.
It will be all right, but I will have to dedicate myself to other things again afterwards, because the next bulletin will be due, and also the interpretation of dreams for the spiritual teachings is due again, along with some other things.
I understand, and I thank you all the more for your efforts. By the way, can you give me some writing paper again? Because we have used up everything. These pages are the last ones.
Of course. Wait a moment. So, my friend, there is now enough for the next time. There are 2,500 sheets in the box. That should be enough again for some time. It is a pity that I cannot do anything with your writing materials, but that is how it works if you can use our paper for our work.
Thank you.
If you have enough time, then I have another question or two.
I am sure there will be plenty of time for that.
All right, then the following. Could you perhaps tell me where or why the eye pressure is too high?
One of the most important factors is that there is too much body moisture pressure, which affects the eyes.
Then it is similar to blood pressure.
Admittedly, comparatively speaking, this can be said, although in certain cases elevated blood pressure can also contribute to this.
Then another question about human freedom. I estimate that smoking and eating as well as the consumption of alcohol, etc. also belong to it, because also in this relation it must be left to the freedom of humans, whether they want to enjoy these things in excess or at all.
Of course, because also these things lie in one's own freedom and in the unique responsibility and self-decision of each individual. Of course, also in this regard, wrongdoers and those who misbehave can be made aware of their mistakes in an appropriate framework, but never use illogical force. The individual personal freedom in all things must be preserved in every form of life.
Thank you. That should be sufficient to be able to meet any such questions.
You yourself do not need these explanations on my part, because I know that you think and act in the same manner as we do in the relationships mentioned.
I have been trying to keep things in this manner all my life, but this is often not understood by my fellow human beings, who always and forever have to grumble about their neighbor, to go on about and to complain, because they simply cannot let it go and have to pick on their fellow human beings. If someone makes a mistake, if someone leads a different lifestyle than you do, or if someone simply behaves differently than the person complained of imagines, then the person in question is panting at and cursing him or her, instead of wiping away the dirt in front of his or her own door and recognizing and correcting his or her own mistakes. Every person thinks themselves to be better than their neighbor, and every person thinks that they are better towards his neighbor and without fault. A behavior which I find extremely regrettable, and which proves to me how much help and development is still needed by those who scold and nag about other people, who are not limited in any society and who therefore appear everywhere. Unfortunately also in our group, although all members of the group should have been above this very regrettable behavior for a long time.
With which you speak true words that should be an incentive, at least for those who are wrong in this respect, to go deep inside themselves and realize that they are no iota better than their neighbors, whom they accuse of their mistakes. Truthfully, also all these fallibilities are going wrong ways, only perhaps differently than their neighbors, whom they play along badly with their blasphemies and insults, and as a rule behind the backs of the insulted, which corresponds to a particularly great shame, because an open word is shunned, or, if it is already used, this only ends in bad reproaches, slander, suspicions, and insults.
Your word in all the fallible one's ear. It would be nice if your words were finally understood by all those who are fallible.
Unfortunately, this will not be the case. For the selfishness and self-justification, as well as the overestimation and autocracy of the fallible drive, them to feel exalted above all their faults, and their having gotten very badly out of control of their good human natures.
Which you will be right about.
That will be so. But now, my friend, I shall finally send you very dear greetings from my daughters Simya-Se and Pleja, as well as from Nera and Asket and from Quetzal and all the others you know personally. Anonymously, I shall also send you greetings and best wishes from many human beings of our Federation, whereby it must be clear to you that in our Federation many more humans know you than you can imagine. Truly there are billions, which is especially due to all the works of spiritual teaching-based form, etc., which you have made for us in all the years of our contacts, and which we of course spread through our spiritual leadership and through our communication channels, etc.
Man, then I could almost assume that I am known like a colorful dog.
Your comparison is extremely inappropriate. We generally know your picture, and therefore your whole appearance.
You do not quite understand, my friend. To be known like a colorful dog means to be known far and wide. There is nothing disreputable about this manner of talking.
Oh, that is what it means. I misunderstood you. But now, Edward, I have to do my duty again. For the time being, Florina and Enjana will supervise your and Bernadette's work regarding the correct writing of the contact reports according to your and our originals, and will be in constant telepathic contact with you. For my part, I have other duties to perform for the next 3 or 4 weeks. Be vigilant and attentive in your work, for it shall not happen again that such malicious errors appear as with Amata, when she made the copies not on the basis of the corrections made by Simya-Se and you, but according to her uncorrected copies. Goodbye now, my friend. I will again be heard from.
Farewell and goodbye until the next time.
Sahlomi, my friend.